Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the SH Monsterarts Godzilla vs. Kong Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Kong, aka Lizard from Monkey vs. Lizard. I'm gonna call him Lizard from this point forward, maybe some Godzilla, I don't know. This is the new one. He's got the blue stuff on him, and he's meant to fight King Kong. And I'm curious, we're just gonna get right into the question of the day. Did you like the movie? Or didn't you like the movie? And on a secondary question, did you think it was a good movie? I enjoyed the movie a lot. Do I think it was a good movie? If you cut everything out except for the monsters, yes, it would be a good movie. That's my take. All right, let's go ahead and get it off the stand, and I'll stop rambling. We'll talk about the figure. This guy stands with just a little bit of bend to him, which I think is reasonable for a standard neutral pose. Just about 16 centimeters, a little bit higher than that, again, depending on how you have him posed. And that's gonna make him just about, I don't know, 6 1/4 inches, right around there, pretty darn close. And here he is up against Monkey, because I know you guys want to see the height comparison. He is just a bit taller, which is appropriate because by the time this movie came out, Kong got a lot bigger and Godzilla stayed about the same, pretty close. All right, so for the aesthetic on this guy, because I already did a question of the day. If you don't remember it, go back and listen to it again. For the aesthetic on this guy, very interesting because he's a lizard, and I would have assumed would be shinier. I don't really remember. I wasn't paying attention to how much reflectiveness he had on him, but he's very matte on the toy. I was expecting a little bit more like a satin finish, more like Kong. And maybe they did that for the fur and the skin, which makes sense. But I was expecting some on Lizard too. But it looks really nice matte. Like, I'm a big fan of matte finishes, pretty much no matter what. Even if they should be shiny, I'm pretty good with matte. And so it could go either way. I'm curious if you guys like that or not, but I think it looks good regardless, and it does make the metallic and semi-shininess of the spikes stand out even more, so I like that. But even his claws are very matte finish. His claws on his hands and his toes, very matte. I think a little bit of sheen on there would have gone a long way to make him come to life, but at the same time, at a smaller scale, the matte finish looks really good. So I'm torn. I can't really say, but now that you know that that exists, you can decide for yourself if you like it or not. But otherwise, there's a little bit of shading throughout here, a little bit of shading throughout the rest of the body, but mostly it's just on his torso right there. And then for the face, we'll zoom in so you can see that. Detail work with the blue for the eyes and the mouth, and I know we're going to get into articulation, but he does have a hinged jaw with a tongue in there, and that's all just the shiny metallic blue. And then of course we have the shiny metallic blue. There's a little bit of shading going on within the blue. It goes lighter to darker, like a yellowish greenish color to a more bluish greenish color, but we have that going on throughout, and it's fairly clean. No issues really. A couple little spots stand out as being a little overspray, but yeah, it's not going to be a big deal. It's not a deal breaker for sure. Looks very nice. It looks good on a shelf. I think most people are going to be happy with that. The biggest complaint I have about this guy, and it's not a big complaint of course, is that the transition from here to here is very abrupt, and it doesn't come to... It's not tapered well, and again, that's a very tiny thing and probably not even going to be noticeable, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. There is a little bit of paintwork on the claws. I don't know if I mentioned that. They're not shiny, but they are painted. So it's an aesthetically pleasing figure for sure. Could it be better? Probably. Most figures can. More paint is almost always better, but it looks really good as it is. I'm very pleased with it, so I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Not a whole lot that could be improved other than, again, enhancing the paint job. The sculpt is fantastic. I didn't really comment on that. It's very nice, very clean sculpt. It doesn't look muddy at all. It's a nice, sharp sculpt, so very, very pleased with that. Now, as far as accessories go, we're going to spend a lot of time here talking about those. We have the 2 hands that come on him in the package, kind of relaxed, kind of intense, like ready to attack hands. And then we get some hands that are a lot more relaxed. And that's it. So accessory-wise, not a lot. I would have preferred some kind of nuclear breath or whatever they call, I don't know what they call them, laser beam mouth. That would have been cool, but yeah, that's it. Not a whole lot going on with accessories. Definitely a bummer there. Well, it's Godzilla, so there's not a lot they could have done. So 5 out of 10. Hands are good. It's not like he needed fist hands or anything, and a little bit of a blast effect would have been it. So he's not missing much, but he also doesn't have much. So 5 out of 10. I think that's fair. All right, now as far as articulation goes, everything's ball pegs. Pretty much everything is ball pegs. I think on this guy even the hips are, unlike Kong, and I can't remove his to check, but pretty much it's ball pegs everywhere. So I'm just going to show you the motion for the most part. Now as far as the neck, he can look up pretty well. Like if you want him to, he can get up there pretty far. Like, that's a lot. So if you want to put him in a swimming pose, I know he does swim in the movies. I don't remember. Yeah, he definitely swam in this one too in the very beginning. So you could definitely put him in a swimming pose. You probably don't want to put his head that far up. It looks weird, but you can. It looks pretty good. Well, good enough. And then if you want to bring it all the way down, you can put it back and down as far as you can go. And that's what it looks like. He doesn't look down per se, but his general direction is down. There's a lot of room here for him to look more down, and you can't do it, but it's definitely good enough. I think that's fine. There's enough joints in there and enough separate pieces. You can get him to look to the side pretty well with minimal gapping. It's not like the most articulation ever, especially because this piece right here, this cap is fairly narrow. They probably could have extended that a little bit and given him a little bit better range, but it still works really well, especially this final one. That's very nice. And then the one down here does afford pretty good range. So yeah, I'm pleased with it. That's fine. And like I said, the jaw does open up and it looks pretty sharp. So I like that. That's cool. Shoulders are on ball pegs. This is a little strange because this one's pretty recessed and I don't get that much range out of it. It mostly just swivels with a little bit of play. This one is a lot less recessed and it has a little bit of extra play. I couldn't free this one up. I yanked on it and it didn't do anything. So she said, and then when I try to rotate this one, it works a little bit better and you get a little bit more range. It's fairly limited. Granted, he's essentially a T-Rex, so his arms are kind of worthless, so it's not a big deal, but it is worth noting he doesn't get a lot of range out of the shoulders, and I'm having this weird sticking issue. And as far as I can tell, they're in the right positions, so I don't know what's going on with this side, or this side, really, but they're okay. For the elbows, a couple of ball pegs stuck together in some floaty pieces. His hand pops off a little bit too easily, but you get just about 90 degrees. And that's okay. Now, the hand popping off doesn't bother me that much, except on this guy, he does have ball hinge hands, and I can't get that one to seat properly to keep that in place when I swap out the hands. Not that I'm probably going to do that, but since he has the ball hinge hands, I'd like that ball peg to stay in the forearm and not in the hand. But you do get decent range out of the hands. If you needed it, it's there. But it's Godzilla, so he doesn't use his hands a lot. I think it's okay. But it is, again, limited, and you can, of course, rotate the arms on those ball pegs. All right, for the torso, we have more ball pegs going on right here, just underneath the armpit. It's going to mostly be... Could you guys hear that car that just drove by? It didn't sound very good. Anyway, it mostly is going to just be like a hinge for an ab crunch here. There's a little bit of play, obviously, because they're ball pegs, but it's mostly going to ab crunch. Ab crunch, gonna ab crunch. Same thing down here. You're gonna get your waist twist out of this one, more or less, but there's not a ton of range going on at this seam right here. Unfortunately, Lizard just, he doesn't lend himself to great posing or articulation. He's got very wide birthing hips and a tiny upper body, and they did a good job with what they had. Like, you can crunch him pretty far down for being built the way he's built, which is a good thing, but there's only so much you can do when you're working with plastic and not CGI dragons. So yeah, it's fine. It's very limited, but I don't blame them. There's nothing they could do about that. Before we get to the hips, I'll talk about the tail. It's just loads of ball pegs all the way through, like tons of them, lots and lots of them. And it doesn't afford tons of range because there's a lot of plastic there, but I think it's enough. They'll just pop off if you try to go too far. I don't suspect there's any real risk of breaking it unless you're like trying to. So that's a good thing. But it is fairly limited. You're not going to get a ton of posing done with the tail without popping it off a ton and having to repop it and just trying to get like every piece just to its maximum bendage. But it does look really good as a result. So again, it's a trade-off. You know, they probably could have gotten more range out of it, but it would have been segmented and looked ugly. This looks really good and you get less range. So yeah, I think it's all right. I'm fine with it. I can see other people being upset that you can't get better range out of it, but you have to pick your battles. So I guess that's the way they chose. You do get, connects all the way up to here. So that looks like it's not going to move, but it does move at that point right there. All right, now for the hips, as far as I can tell, it feels like a double ball peg in there, but he's got such big hips, I can't see in there to tell what exactly it is. But they move around surprisingly well, like really well, and they're not even gappy. So that's pretty cool. You can put him in some cool poses from the waist down, and that might be helpful for whatever you're doing. But it shouldn't be too bad to pose this guy, honestly. Like, his arms are limited, his torso is limited, that's to be expected, but his legs work really well. Knees, obviously he's got thick legs, so you don't have that much range, but they straighten out a lot, so running poses or Have they ever actually shown him running? I don't know if they have. Anyway, you get enough range out of all those different ball pegs, and same thing for the ankle. It's not going to do anything crazy, but you'll be able to get him to stand. So it's fine. The hips are probably the most impressive part of this whole thing because he's got really good hips. And the head looks well, it works well enough, it looks good. Shoulders, yeah, it's basically a story of it works and it looks good, or it works well enough and it looks good. That's the articulation for this guy, and that's to be expected. So I'm gonna give it only, I don't know, like a 7 out of 10 for articulation. For a big lizard that's fat hipped and big chunky torsoed, I guess that's perfectly reasonable. So final verdict on this guy is, it is what you thought it was gonna be. I don't think there's much they could have done to make it better, again, other than some extra paint and, I don't know, some crazy elaborate engineering maybe, but I think it's fine the way it is. So if you like Godzilla, if you like monsters, if you like cool figures, if you like anything that made you watch this video, go ahead and get it. You're gonna enjoy it. If you don't like anything about it, then you probably shouldn't, because why are you even watching the video? It doesn't make sense. But yeah, they did a good job. I'm gonna give it an overall rating of, given the fact that they couldn't have done much better, I'm going to go 8 out of 10. I don't think there's much they could have changed to improve the problems that it has. The wrist popping out is probably just bad luck for me, so I'm not going to worry about that. This one doesn't do it, so it's fine. Yeah, it's a good release. I recommend it. If you're interested in this sort of thing, go ahead and pick it up. You'll like it. If you're not, then don't. But it's solid. I like it. I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm not even that big of a fan of lizards. So there you go. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel. Make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.